With that, it's my pleasure to introduce today's presenters, Klaus Frost, Rick Reith, and Aaron Bond from ISE. Guys, I'll turn it over to you.
Awesome. Great. Thanks
Thank you.
very much, Chad. We appreciate that. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. For those who are attending or potentially listening to the broadcast later on, my name is Klaus Frost, and as mentioned, we're going to talk about MV2 and the way in which it provides shop floor capabilities for those running business centrals. The agenda for today, go through quick introductions and then start to talk about the application, where it fits within the organization, as well as where it fits for the integration to Business Central. And then from there, I'll turn it over to Rick, who will be talking about the application, showing how and where it does what it does in terms of actionable data and presentation of that solution. And we'll turn it over then to Aaron to talk about the ways in which we connect our successes with our solution, our people, our processes, and then finally wrap it up with key takeaways and some Q&A. So as mentioned, my colleagues, Aaron Bondi, she's marketing executive here and co-owner at ISE. I'm on the sales side and customer service / success. And then Rick Reith, our senior manufacturing engineer. And between all of us, we've got decades of experience within the world of ERP, Business Central, as well as manufacturing. So we're delighted to have everybody attend the event today. Talking about MV2 and the solution that we provide to our customers, it really focuses on a couple of things. And we'll focus or talk about the simplicity in terms of replacing the complexity that ERP systems potentially have when they are trying to support the shop floor. So everything that we do, we talk about in terms of the simplicity of the interface, the adoption of those activities out on the shop floor, and the way in which we have the ability to really support that end users and provide the features and the functions that they need to be successful on a day-to-day basis. We are very much tuned to the personas out on the shop floor. So you'll see in the presentation and part of the solution that it is geared for operators, supervisors, even executives within a manufacturing organization, so that they have the ability to see exactly the information that they need to be successful on a day-to-day basis. And then finally, turning that data into action. We're very much about taking the information that we collect and making it or turning it into actions, so that you're guiding the activities throughout the course of the day, regardless of where you are in that level of the organization. MV2 can very much be a transformational type of tool within your application toolkit, from digital transformation, transitioning from paper-based reporting of shop floor activities, or perhaps custom programs, access databases, Excel, things of that nature, and really taking that to the next level to say, we're going to gather this information and, as mentioned, turn it into those actions that guide and improve day-to-day activities. The visibility that we provide, it enables change within the organization, growth of the organization, as well as the individuals that are using the system in and of itself. We're empowering those end users, those supervisors, those line leads, to make sure that at the end of the day, they have the ability to be confident in what they're doing and moving progress forward. And then finally, in that way, we have the ability to become the shop floor command center. So taking into consideration all the different activities that are taking place and really being able to manage it in a proactive way. And then finally, our relationship with BC. So we offer pre-built integration to the core ERP system. The IT group does not have to worry about that. We take care of that, as well as each and every successful iteration and release of BC going forward. It's nice in that because we're an integrated solution and focus out on the shop floor, the heart and soul of the discrete manufacturer, we have the ability to run even if Business Central is not available. And finally, that machine integration to support production activities. Again, the manufacturing floor is very much the heart and soul of a manufacturer, and therefore that needs to be supported 24/7, 365. MV2 has the capability to do that. And then as that activity takes place, in the event Business Central is not available, we'll go ahead and update Business Central when it comes back online. And now it's up to speed with everything that has taken place in the area of production out on the shop floor during that outage. In terms of the application and where does it fit in your business, when we talk to customers and partners, we sometimes have to take a step back and say, here's actually what we're talking about. So in this infographic, you'll see in a left to right orientation. On the left side, you're starting with BC and the demand and orders. And in a left to right orientation, BC comes back in on the far right side. So everything in between those bookends is largely related to the activity of that manufacturer out on the shop floor. From planning and scheduling to the actual activity of shop floor execution, quality inspections, etc., that perceived scope, as the bracket indicates, is where most people think that kind of your shop floor solution, and that's really where your focus is. But in all actuality, the true scope of MV2, when you look at it from that shop floor command center, as I alluded to at the beginning, we look at some things very much further upstream from the scheduling and the dispatch of the production orders through the receiving of material, putting that material out on the shop floor, your production lines, your work cells, etc., working on it, working through that in terms of quality and inspection, work in process tracking, traceability of that material, so on and so forth, and really then understanding along the way if you're ahead or behind. Are we managing our activities on a day-to-day basis? Again, back to the actionable data that we're trying to provide and control such that we're achieving our targets, our day-to-day metrics, our on-time shipping rates, things of that nature. And then ultimately at the end, that ERP putback is what we do as well. So as you can see, there's quite a bit of capability above and beyond what most people think of when they just simply talk about shop floor execution and where MV2 MES lives, if you will. When we take it one step further and we talk about that data integration or synchronization with Business Central, what we see there is at the top, Business Central, and at the bottom, MV2. So roughly 12 and 6 o'clock, or 12 and 6 on the hands of a clock. And when we do this integration and we import a lot of pertinent manufacturing data into the application such that we present that. Remember, I alluded to a very simplified, kind of human-centric MES solution. Well, that's how we are able to do that because of our integration and the data that we import from Business Central into MV2. Now it's ready to go, if you will. Everybody has access to MV2. They can understand what their roles are within the organization, the tasks that they need to perform, the information, how well am I doing, so on and so forth. All of that activity is resident and ready to be performed in the solution. As that activity is taking place in the form of shop floor activity, we have then these transactions and ultimately journal entries that are taking place in Business Central. And by doing that, we have the complete cycle of data between Business Central and MV2. And as we do that, as that cycle of data flows between the two applications, and it gets quicker, it gets better in terms of the edit checking, the preventative natures that were taking place to prevent errors at the point of entry, then your overall health of the organization and the applications that are inside the application, in addition to Business Central, are effectively running that much better because the data itself that they have to use is more effective, it's more real time, and it's of high value. Finally, in terms of the MV2 platform and the different capabilities and areas that bring to the brackets that I mentioned earlier, so production information, inventory, KPIs and dashboards, the attendance, the analytics and alerts, machine integration, Kanban, everything that you see there has a place within the organization out on the shop floor, but then they're very much working in concert with one another in terms of the workflows that are out on the shop floor. And as you can see at the bottom, there's different types of user interfaces, information that becomes very actionable, as well as the different types of devices that can be used out on the shop floor or material handlers, so on and so forth, within the organization to support the use of MV2. So with that, I'm going to transition over to Rick, and he's going to talk about the actionable data and presentation of the solution. Rick?
Yeah, thanks, Klaus. I appreciate that. You think about today's world, right? Today's world is really driven off of data, and manufacturers have always been in that mindset of saying, I want to continuously improve my throughput, my cost of goods. I want to minimize things. It's a very competitive arena that we live in with these manufacturing companies. And then taking that big data that we're kind of all used to these days, that we all live and breathe in on our cell phone, our smart devices at home, et cetera. We're using that data to make changes. The key word here is actionable. We want to give, our users, both on the shop floor all the way up through the C-level group, those information data points that they can make action or they can perform actions on. It's that data that is driving an action. So it's really empowering those people to actually do different things. I'm going to kind of walk you through just maybe a couple examples and then go into some live demo code as well. You think about actionable data, right? On the shop floor, or inside your manufacturing facility, you've got really three pillars of data. You've got your material, you got machine, and you got your manpower. All three of those things combine to actually tell you whether or not you're going to kind of quote unquote win the day. If I have, material available, that's great. I can actually run, something. If I don't have a machine, now I can't run it. I need manpower as well to be interjected into this, I guess, little world to say that all three of these things need to be kind of alive and running and be as efficient as possible. So kind of going into this machine, a really good example from one of our customers who, they were posed with the problem saying that they had a machine that was at 100% capacity. And mind you, they run 3 shifts a day and they run 7 days a week. This machine was producing about 9 million pounds of aluminum per year. When I say producing, it was actually processing. So it was actually producing about 9 million pounds of parts. This company actually does aluminum extruding. And then from that extrusion, they'll actually, cut those parts into different things based on their customer needs. Well, they were given a capital request to say, we need another machine because we're at 100% capacity. Obviously, I can't add more people because it's already running 3 shifts a day and 7 days a week. And they went to the ownership group and said, well, we need another machine. The supervisor, the plant manager, and the operators all kind of told their story of why they needed this additional piece of equipment. So they kind of backed up one step and said, well, let's just analyze, this piece of equipment that we're looking to buy is actually something that we already have. It's just maybe not utilized. So they started analyzing the uptime of that machine and capturing the downtime and the reasons for that machine and why it was going down was a big part of that. And then they continued to analyze and adjust and repeat that process. So they made incremental gains, understanding that this machine was really not up 100% of the time. And that's almost impossible because obviously you have machine maintenance and just standard kind of downtime for setup and everything else. However, they were finding bits and pieces of time where that machine was waiting for parts or that machine was actually being jammed by some chips of the aluminum that were getting, bogged up into the fixture, not allowing it to cut it accurately. So they had to constantly open up the machine and actually clear out the chips and then start the machine up. Well, lo and behold, after they've done this, and this was over, a number of years, they took that machine from producing those 9 million pounds of aluminum per year to 16 million pounds per year. They've almost doubled the output of that machine. They didn't add a new machine. They didn't add any additional resources, which means they didn't add new employees or anything else. They really just analyzed the downtime of that machine and were able to actually put little Kaizen events out there on the shop floor to investigate why it was going down, what they needed to do, change. And again, the changes were across the board. They had some material issues, from their suppliers. They fixed those. They had some fixture issues. So they had their tool and die department actually change the fixtures. They had some operator issues as well, as far as, being available at the time to actually load parts into that machine, et cetera. But over the course of, a couple of years, they actually doubled the output of that machine. And you just think of that from a perspective, what that does for that manufacturer, right? They, didn't incur the cost of that new machine, which is usually in the 7 figures. They didn't have to worry about where do I put this machine now out on my shop floor and how do I put it in a place where it's actually within my value stream so I'm not introducing extra steps and processes for moving material around. They didn't have to add any new additional people to double the output of that year. Here's kind of what we did for them, right? The machine that they were specifically looking at was a Haas machine, which is an automatic CNC machine that has multiple heads and can cut different pieces and cut different factors. We started capturing the data, and we started capturing it directly as well as through a third-party FactoryWiz kind of application. But it doesn't have to be. It could be other applications that have communication that maybe that machine already is tied into. Sometimes that machine, like this Haas machine, has the ability to connect through an Ethernet port or an RS-232 connection to actually send data. What we do is we capture and process that data through our machine integration layer, and then ultimately through our MES application, MV2, to actually, adjust production, adjust inventory, throw up some KPIs, and then also do some analytics. And most importantly, in my mind, is start alerting people. So every time that machine would go down, there would be an alert message, both visual, meaning that the operator saw that it was down. There's a little red flashing border on the screen. There's a dashboard up on a TV monitor on the wall that shows that machine going down. And then there were emails under the covers that were getting sent out to different departments depending on who they selected. It was the maintenance department. Traditionally, it was the supervisor and then maybe somebody else that says this machine went down, you need to take care of that. And then ultimately, all this information is also ultimately sent back to ERP, so in Business Central in this case. Let me just take a quick view of that from a software perspective. So from a software perspective, you heard Klaus say we've got different user interfaces and experiences. From a dashboard, this is what they potentially could see. They could see a number of work centers that they subscribe to and say, all right, I want to see the status of these work centers. And I happen to choose 13 different work centers to display to you. You can immediately see I've got 2 work centers that are red because those are my exceptions I want to deal with right now and take care of. And they are both down. One's for a mechanical reason, the other one's for reason D4. I can see on the other side of the spectrum, I have something here that's green, which means that this is running a job and it's running correctly. It's running on time and to rate. That's great. I have yellow ones, which means that those work centers are running jobs, which is great. And you can see the production order they're running and the item and the actual versus expected and all that stuff. But it's taking more time than what's expected. Another good indicator that I'll get into a little bit later to say something is wrong out there in the floor that I need to correct it. And then we've got idle work centers that are blue, and we've also got one that is, idles are orange. The blue one is actually doing setup. And you can even take this to say, well, maybe at a work center level, I'm going to go into those work centers that are down. This one has been down for an hour and counting. And as you can see here, there's that red border I just mentioned earlier. So the operator knows that on their device that they're looking at, which would be this screen. But then you also have supervisors that maybe look at it from this perspective, and I can see that that one's down for that time. This one's down for 23 minutes. There's also additional dashboards that can be created, and you guys create these on your own. You don't need to be a developer to do it. I have one out here called RIC2, and if I look at this one, I can see here on the left-hand side of my screen, I can see these are my 2 machines that are down. One's been down for just a little over an hour. The other one's been down for 23 minutes. And they get color-coded based on some thresholds that you can define. And then up above here is something where I can see that I'm running a job for 23 minutes. I should have expected to already reported 7 pieces, and 0 pieces were reported. Again, a good indicator out there to a supervisor and the operator and everybody within that business that things are running slower than what's expected. I can address it right now and take care of it rather than waiting until the end of the day, the end of the week, the end of the quarter, whatever it may be. So another good indicator for this downtime was they could actually drill into it. So I could say, take my metrics and go into downtime here. And I'm looking at downtime. I can say, well, what's the last 2 days? Or maybe I want to take this over the last couple of years and change it to maybe a bar chart because it looks a little prettier. And now I'm actually, showing a metric here of all the downtime that has been accumulated across the work centers that I chose, which is all of them. And it's going to sort them in worst performing on the left-hand side to best performing on the right-hand side. And then down below are all the individual events that cause that machine to go down. And if I wanted to, I could actually drill into like line number 1 here, and I can see line number 1 says, all right, electrical is the main reason this machine is going down. Next, followed by material, then by a sterilization activity, and then by a mechanical reason. So these are the pieces of information that that customer used to kind of drive into why was that machine going down, and then make the necessary corrections to eliminate the material problems or the electrical problems or the manpower problems, which gave them that huge benefit of avoiding a very costly event of getting a new asset in place and hiring individuals, etc. My second example I kind of want to walk through is just kind of from a data accuracy standpoint. Another customer of ours, they actually make tiles. When I say tiles, you think about going to your big box stores for Home Depot. You've got your patio pavers, but those are some of the tiles they make. But they also make big staircases for large universities as well as companies. They make, the Target red balls you'll see. They also make like outdoor patio furniture at like a Culver's or McDonald's. So they had a heavy paper process, and they saw a lot of delay in information and errors. And they saw some different rates for products as well as work centers. And what the paperless system did allowed them to see is that, as you saw me earlier, machines were running slower than expected. Well, why was it running slower? As you looked into it, they found out that it was using a rate for this 2x2 tile for all 2x2 tiles, and some were different than others. Some had a little bit more density, some had a little bit more aggregate that went into them. So what they were able to uncover is that they adjusted their rates differently based on the item that was being manufactured, as well as the work center that it went through. And then they were able to actually adjust their cost and price of those products. So bottom line, it immediately adjusted the price because it took more effort to make certain types of those 2x2 pavers because of the aggregate or the machine it was running through. A huge cost saving, and actually I was going to say productivity, but it's actually profit. They increased their profit margin as well. The same company had the same issues kind of with paper out on the inventory side of their business, where they had delayed information as well. They have 5 buildings with 2,400 locations. Really finding information was a big nightmare for them. And their accuracy was about 75%. So if you think about just the accuracy and then people running around the shop floor or the warehouse trying to find material that they think it's supposed to be in one location, but it's really not. Or maybe it's there, but they don't have enough in that location to satisfy what they're trying to do. So they got to go to multiple locations. Well, they went through a process of saying, all right, let's actually improve this inventory. They turned on something which is called backflushing, which I know you guys know about maybe, or maybe you don't, which is consuming the inventory at the actual time that material was actually being used. They put tablets and handhelds out there for the material handlers, having them do the transactions, or when they moved material, when they took it out to the line, when they received it in at the dock. They took their inventory accuracy from that 75% all the way up to 99%. What this did for them from a business standpoint, it eliminated the need to do a physical inventory across those 5 different warehouses and buildings. And then also they ultimately reduced the cycle counts and their auditing requirements from an outside source. And what they now do from an auditing perspective is their auditors said, all right, if you can maintain this accuracy, I think they gave them a level of 98% accuracy. If you can maintain 90%, 8% or above, we only have to go and audit or do a cycle count of maybe 15 items rather than 100 items. So they would come in, basically give them a sheet of 100 items. The auditors would choose about 15 of those items, go and do the counts. If they were accurate above 98%, they would say, all right, you're done. The audit is complete. It saves them a gazillion amount of time as well as dollars. From a application standpoint, this is kind of how that works, where if I'm looking at, my shop floor here, I can, I'm just pick a different work center. I'm going to take this one. Based on the jobs that are supposed to be running in this work center, I can actually go and look at information like on the shop packet to see my bill of material, what's going to be consumed at this step of the manufacturing process, what's not going to be consumed. I have all the material out here to say, here's all my locations and the quantity in hand. I can dive into these to see additional information if I want to say what specific location has what quantity. If you're using FIFO, if you're using batch lot, if you're using serial numbers, those all play a part in that inventory management. And from an operator's perspective, they're literally just starting and stopping jobs, reporting the end items that are complete. The consumptions are handled automatically. From a material handler standpoint, they can come out and do a issue material transaction where they could say, I'm just going to issue material, and it's asking me for a badge number. And now I can say, well, what do I want to issue? And I could say, I want to pick and choose the different items. I could put a quantity across the board and pick them all for everybody. They could also do this on a handheld type of device. So these devices are, built and designed for either small real estate handheld type of devices, where if I want to do a transfer material, I'm going to basically scan in information from a label. I can also type it in here if I want to, or you see there's a search button here as well, where they could actually search for the items that they're looking for and then do the warehouse transfers from there. But all of this stuff is kind of eliminating that paper, making things real time, but most importantly, making it accurate, and then giving the triggers to the supervisors, to the workers, to the C-level, everybody within the company to say, all right, there's an issue that needs to be addressed, whether I'm running low on material, whether a job is running slower than what's expected. Those are all the types of information that people want to know in manufacturing so they can improve their productivities, efficiency, and ultimately their profit. With that, Klaus, I'm going to kind of turn it back over to yourself.
All right. Thanks for that, Rick. I think some fantastic examples of, there we go, of the way in which MV2 could be considered as a shop floor command center, being able to look at all the different components, aspects of manufacturing, inventory, even your example with the aluminum extruder of the different types of visibility that we provide, either in that particular case, coming from the machines, the downtime, and doing your Kaizen events and going from 9 million pounds to 16 million pounds, just a fantastic example of that. And then the second one with the tile manufacturer and being able to eliminate physical inventory. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there in the manufacturing space that would love to be able to do that. So that's very much about the tools and how we can do that for our customers. I'd like to introduce Erin so she can talk a little bit about that, what we call connected success, because at the end of the day, it's not just about the application. There's far more to the solution that we have, if you will, than just the solution in and of itself. So Erin?
Yeah. Thanks, Klaus. I appreciate that. Yeah, we at ISE, we believe in connected success. And for us, that means a lot of things. We're people-centric MES. We design that specifically to be able to put the customer first, to really believe in the partners that we partner up with and make sure that our customers that we do business with have that connected success. So we believe in collaboration. We listen, we pull up our sleeves and we get in on those shop floors so we can really make sure that that solution fits that shop floor. We do training and implementation to make sure that there's change management in place, that process improvement happens, that the shop floor buys into the solution that's put into their shop floor that they need to use. We do continuous optimization. We have an in-house dev team. That's where this product is built. We support it and we implement it. So it's all done here. We stand by our word in what we're doing and we put our customers first. We have a super high customer satisfaction rate. We have over a 15-year retention and we're 24 hours and we're US based. So we believe in our solution. We believe in what we develop and what we implement and what we support. When you call us, we pick up. So we really do believe in that. And that connected success doesn't just mean today, it's for tomorrow, it's for the future. It's for what does that partner need to make sure that our customers are successful? What does that customer need to make sure that they're not just successful today, but they're successful years from now as they continue to be our customer? So we really believe in that. We have strong brand promises and we support them. We don't just put an application in and walk away. We stand by it and we stand by it as long as you have it. So thank you, Klaus. I appreciate being able to speak on behalf of ISE.
You're very welcome. Thank you. And just a quick note, I think I didn't allude to this at the beginning, and I apologize for that, but our organization has been around for over 40 plus years. That's where you get that longevity that Erin speaks to, really taking care of that customer, that relationship, that partnership with not only our customers, but also our partners like Sabre where we're providing everything that we could possibly do, including a roadmap, so that not only today, but also tomorrow, all the different things that are coming at today's manufacturer, from supply chain issues to new technology to new ways of doing things, new thinking. So a lot of input that comes into ISE from a variety of different sources. So we're very, very happy and proud to be able to say what we do in terms of customer retention as well as longevity of our organization. Okay, before we get to Q&A, just some quick things that we'd like to have as far as takeaways from today's presentation. So very important, pre-built integration to Business Central. We talked about that in terms of the amount of data that we import into the MV2 application to make it very simple for those operators and those people using the system out on the shop floor, because at the end of the day, you hire them to do a task, to do work, not navigate screens, not punch buttons on a system, so on and so forth. So super simple in terms of the operator experience, but that's only enabled through the level of integration that we have with Business Central, and all that activity then updates Business Central in real time. So then the people that are in the back office using Business Central or the complementary applications like the planning systems, financial systems, etc., are benefiting from all of that data coming off of the shop floor and updating Business Central in real time. As Rick pointed out, a lot of actionable data. It's not data collection. It's not just people out on the shop floor either scanning barcodes or touching buttons and not really getting any guidance or information from the system. So that actionable data is something that we would like you to walk away with, and that visibility and some ease of use. And then finally, as Aaron alluded to, really the team aspect that we approach this with, not only the platform, which is the product and everything that we drive into it in terms of our roadmap, technology, feature functions, etc., but also everybody that surrounds it as well. So quite a few people involved with the overall support of the application, the implementation team itself, the engineering, so on and so forth. So with that, I guess I will ask for the Q&A if we've got any.
Yeah, if anybody in the audience has a question too, they can unmute themselves and ask it. But there were a couple questions that we had here. Let's see. When manufacturers are evaluating partners in the Microsoft ecosystem, what are 3 things they absolutely need to look for?
Rick, you want to take that one?
For evaluating partners?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest one would be longevity, not only with the partner, how long they've been around, but how long have their products been around. As Klaus mentioned just a little while ago, we've been around for 40 years, and we only deal with manufacturing companies, and we really only deal with the execution systems on the shop floor. So I think that's a really valuable thing to kind of take away when you're kind of evaluating who you want to partner with. So that's my answer.
Okay, there's another one. What concerns do manufacturers usually have when moving off paper spreadsheets or disconnected systems?
I can take that one too, Klaus. There's obviously trepidation, when you're eliminating something that you've been using for a long time. Just think about it in our personal lives, right? When we go away from those paper copies of our bills or reports and now going all digital and electronic. The same kind of goes out there on the shop floor. The nice thing is you can go to that digital, 100% digital format, but you can also have paper out there as well. So if you have things that are barcoded, you can still support that paper kind of going around the shop floor. I would say once people start doing this, in fact, we just had a user conference about 6 months ago. And one of the themes that came out of that from our panel discussion with 4 of our customers was the cultural change that happened out there on the floor. And the biggest thing for the cultural change is when I say that is they're relying on the system, and they're relying on the system not only to help them do their job, but also to help their business. One of the people on the panel was a lady that said, one of her oldest employees, he was, 70 plus, so probably should have been retired. So you can think about where he came from, where he grew up with no computer systems, no digital in his world, or home life, etc. And he now is being asked to do these entries into the application and actually look at the application for guidance. And once all of a sudden he lost one of his employees, he was panicking like, okay, who else is going to enter this in? Because this information is helping him be more productive productive. And he also knew, because he was more productive, his role, by the way, was a maintenance person, where he would get machines back up and running when they went down. So he knew that if people weren't entering the consumption of parts that he was using in a timely fashion, that he wouldn't have the purchasing department buy those parts, so that when, you know, the next machine went down and needed those, it was kind of being stalled out and not being able to get back online as quick as possible. So he was really nervous about this information not getting entered into the system in a timely fashion and accurate fashion, because he knew the effect on his job as well as the effect on the business, because if that machine's not running, it's not making parts and the company's not making money off of it.
There's another one. What separates a successful ERP and MIS project from one that technically works but never really gets adopted?
You can take that one, Klaus.
Yeah, that's a great question, because I
Mhm.
think there's multiple facets to it. But, you know, one of the things I always think of is the implementation side of it, right? It's you can buy a tool, but if you don't know how to use that tool effectively and efficiently, you won't get the true value of it and the contribution that that particular tool could make. And you know, our solution is just one example of that. But really taking the time, Aaron alluded to this earlier with our implementation team, where we actually come on site and we're part of the team from the customer side that's looking to deploy and implement our tool, but in a way that makes sense, that fits within the organization, their goals, objectives. So really taking the time early on to understand what that is. What are your goals and objectives for this particular project? Then starting to merge that together with the application and how it then gets deployed out on the shop floor at this particular work cell, at that particular department, so on and so forth. And wrapping that all around a change management philosophy and making sure that, to Rick's point, the people that aren't comfortable with computer systems are comfortable with computer systems. And the way we do that, through a proof of concept / conference room pilot, right? Where the system is set up, it mimics what's going to be out on the shop floor, and they're able to do that in a sandbox and really use the system in a no harm, no foul way, so that they can get used to it and comfortable with it. And once the team gets comfortable with it, then we transition from that conference room pilot out to the shop floor. And it's really no different. They're very comfortable. The screens are exactly the same as the ones they use in the conference room pilot. And we're also there supporting them, being there to support them. Yep, this is the question you had. Here's how we answer it. Reiterate that. Maybe there's some guidance, some work instructions that are part of the overall implementation and rollout. So there's a lot of different ways to ensure that at the end of the day, the value of that solution is being realized by the company and the partner that invested in it, so that those goals and objectives are being realized.
Okay. Lewis submitted a couple questions here. Does the MES tool generate SQ dip dashboard?
Yeah, I can take, you want me to take that one, Klaus, or you want to do it?
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I would say that we don't do all of the SQDIP dashboards, because we don't have the safety built in yet into our application for understanding when people went down. But from a quality perspective, delivery, you know, we actually have a metric built in to our application. We call it on-time manufacturing. And we say on-time manufacturing because we know when it was expected to be completed versus when it was actually completed. We don't actually get into the actual delivery, meaning how, you know, being put on the truck and how long it takes to deliver to the actual customer door. But then inventory and production, as you saw, I already talked about those. There was another question out there too.
Yeah, there's a couple more. Lewis asked a couple more. Do you provide any recommended approaches or tools to help customers capture shop floor data when they don't have sensors or automated data collection systems?
Want me to take it, Klaus, or you want to jump in?
I'll start with that one. And so while we talked about machines, you know, something that we do very much is that human side of it, right? The human-centric MES solution. And what we mean by that is really saying, okay, if you have a tablet, a laptop, a PC, anything that really can display the MV2 solution, that then is your portal into the application. So we can track time, if it's attendance, for payroll purposes, if it's setup, labor time, indirect time, etc. Production activity, how many good pieces you made, how many potential scrap pieces you made. all the inventory that we talked about. Those are things that you have the capability of doing right from a tablet or even a wireless handheld device with a barcode scanner. So when you talk about data collection per se, you don't need machines/sensors in order to do that with MV2. That's just another option to consider. So very much you can start small. We talk often about crawl, walk, run. And in that crawl phase, we're really rolling out the MV2 application and doing a few activities, depending on where that customer is and their digital transformation journey. If they're coming from custom applications or maybe data collection applications, if you will, and transitioning to MV2, they're already kind of familiar with the process of reporting activity. Then it's a very easy transition. As easy, or maybe a little bit maybe different, is if you're coming from paper, right? And you're used to writing things down on a piece of paper and then handing it in at maybe a break, lunch, end of shift, something along those lines. And now you're actually using a tablet to say, okay, I'm actually starting and stopping this job. I don't have to write it down anymore. But again, based on that education and training and implementation, that becomes a very natural activity. We like to say, if you can buy gas at the pump, you can use MV2. It's really a click or two and you're off and running. So very easy, simplistic user interface.
Klaus, I'm sorry if I missed part of it, your response. Did you mention it's a browser-based application? So that device is really, agnostic. I mean, it could be anything that can display a browser, whether you're an Apple fan or a Chromebook fan, as long as you can display a browser, you can use that MV2 application.
Okay. Sorry, Rick.
No, I was going to jump in, Chad. I saw Lewis's other question regarding quality inspection. Yes, quality inspection is built in as well, where during that in-process testing, so if I'm manufacturing something and there were quality tests that need to be performed at step 2 of the manufacturing process, and then maybe another 3 tests at the 5th step of the manufacturing process, and then maybe at the end of the line when the end item's complete. And as far as sample sizing, there's different ways you can configure per test the sample size. So it could be like an AQL level, which I see you mentioned in your question. So we support AQL levels. We also support, a full complete inspection or a fixed sample size inspection. So you can actually do those during in process. You can also do it for purchased items. You can also have standalone tests that maybe are not attached to that production order. Maybe they're attached to that machine, that I have a 5S checklist that I must go through every day before I start running that machine. Those are just different examples.
Okay, if that's all of the questions, if anybody has any other ones, they can always reach out and ask them. Klaus has his contact information there. So we just wanted to thank ISE for running the webinar and thank everybody for attending. Thank Klaus, Rick, and Aaron for presenting today. We really appreciate it. And we hope everyone has a good day.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Chad.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.